I was a bit impulsive and I was ready to chuck her out kind of thing when she was much smaller than this. So we've already had a discussion, so she's good with me now. So carrying on with plants, shall we? So I've done Switchy, Trey, Jay, Lennox, and baby Lennox, and baby Trey. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Done 6. We are about halfway through the ones in my room, and I think for this recording I'm just going to stick with the ones in my room. So there may be a part 2, part 3. So it may be a part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 3 I may be wearing something completely different. I may show up looking completely different, but we'll see. We will see. We'll see. I think the next ones I'm going to do are my allocation, not my alocasias. Yeah, my alocasias. No, my aloes, aloe veras, or my aloes. Now, they all pretty much have the same name, and there's a bit of a backstory. So let me grab them. Right, so I'm showing these as a pair. These are the Grace twins. Maybe I call them the Grace twins, yeah? So these two used to be, this one and this one used to be in a single pot. A single pot that was smaller than this, I believe. So they used to be in a single pot when I bought them. So when I bought them, it was a pair of alocasias, a pair of aloe veras in the same pot. And I bought another one as well. So those 2 pots of aloes got split into 3. And because each pot had like 2 parent aloes in there, so that's like the bigger one, whereas like this one's got some pups in here. So there's some aloe pups in here, so they're a bit smaller in terms of size in bunches, but this is like a parent one. This one where these leaves are is a parent one. A bit hard to see because this pot is getting fuller, which I absolutely love. So say there were 2 parent aloes in each pot, and I bought 2 pots, and this was last year, and with that I split them into 3 pots. So a pair went into one pot, a pair went into a second pot, and then the pups went into a third pot. Now over a short period of time I lost one of those pots of aloe parents. And that one I named Gratitude. So I named it Gratitude, Grace, and then I think the smaller one was named Growth or something like that. But Gratitude was the name of one pair of aloe parents, and I lost Gratitude. So I lost Gratitude, the parent, but I was grateful for the time that I had that plant, that aloe vera. And what went into that pot afterwards was Nanu, who I haven't introduced you to yet. She will probably be in a separate video. And she just began to thrive, and she was a pothos plant, a golden pothos, so completely different type of plant to an aloe. But Grace survived. So the pair of Grace parents survived. I then had to repot her into 2 different pots, and then put the pups in even a separate pot. So Grace has multiplied, and what Grace signifies is pacing myself through life, allowing myself to feel what I feel when I feel it, to giving myself more grace, showing myself more compassion. So that's why I say my plants are a huge part of my healing and my evolution of self. I learn a lot from my plants, through caring through them. That's why the names are always purposeful. So with Gratitude, it was like a family of G's. And so even though I lost the aloe vera plant Gratitude, I was grateful for its life, its time with me, however short, however long. But I definitely became even more conscious of being grateful for every single moment in time. So yeah, whereas Grace, I think, stuck around because I believe that the more grace I gave myself is the more I was able to pour from my overflow and be able to offer serve people, which is, I believe I'm a woman of service, serve people from a genuine and a true and a healthy place, because I'm giving myself grace to be all of the things in the best way that I can, in a more balanced and healthy way of navigating this place we call life. So yeah, so this is Grace number 1. So this is one of the Grace twins. Aloe veras are very forgiving and they spring back very well, because at one point both of these and the smaller ones I'm going to show you next were turning like a reddy purpley color at one point and looking really dry and limp, definitely not as green as they're looking here. And I think it's because I was probably not giving myself enough grace. I wasn't breathing as much as I needed to, and so therefore I neglected them slightly. And by neglecting my plants showing signs of neglect is like a mirror of me neglecting parts of myself, because I feel very, very connected to my plants. And so I know that if my plants look like something's not right, that's probably a sign that something's not right within. So I need to address what is going on within so that I can then better care for my plants. So at one point when I really looked at them, I was like, these don't look right. They're changing color and not necessarily a color that they should be. So I then I was like, okay. And you know, aloes do really well in drought or minimal watering, but I think I'd left them a bit too long and they were probably a bit too close to the sunlight that we were having, and then the air was really warm during the summer and everything. So I kind of put them all in my shower, the 4 that I have, so these 2 and the 2 smaller ones that I have that have come from these, and I hosed them and then left them, and they sprung back, they bounced back. And this one is one of the strongest parents. I think this is the strongest parent of the 2 aloes that I have here. There's a fly in there. Of the 4, or of the parents that I started off with, I don't know if there's 4 anymore, but of the parents that I started off with, this is probably the strongest one, because it looks sturdy. This one almost looks like Abwe. Abwe is one of my aloes, but he lives in the living room because he needs to sit on the ground, and he's much more, he's firmer and he's bigger, and I got him from my granddad, hence why I called him Abwe, because Abwe is short for abuelo or abuela in Spanish, meaning grandparent or granddad, grandmother. So these are Grace. So Grace is both of these. So I'm now going to show you the Grace twins' offshoots, just to help control the growth that has happened over the past 18 months maybe that I've had these. Probably a bit less than that. I think it was probably April last year, April 2022 I got these. So let me show you the smaller babies. So these are the smaller versions. They're in twin pots because there was another plant. Oh yeah, there was other plants that were in, actually no, there are other plants that were in these. So when those came out, these went in. So these came from those same aloes. I'm pointing because that's where they live, over there in that corner. So these were pups. They are still pups in comparison. They are smaller, but I think there were literally 2 or 3 leaves in this one pot at one point, and it's just multiplied, evolved. So my plants are really happy. They are really happy, but that's also probably an indication because of me being really happy. So I am in a good place in my life. My plants do reflect me heavily. And even if they don't reflect me, if they are looking better than I'm feeling, then I use them as like a springboard to bounce back. So this is another one, so a bit closer. So these were pups again. There were probably, I think this pup is creating pups, which is mad because I don't think I potted this many pups. I think this is the one I potted because this one feels firmer and stronger and looks the fullest and looks bigger. So I think this was just 2 leaves at one point, 2 or 3. I've got pictures of them when I first potted them in this. But they were little pups. They were these little skinny things and I had no idea. This is why taking pictures is so important. Pictures or mini videos to document it. Because one minute you could look at your plant and think nothing's happening. And then the next time you look at it and it's like, what happened? Where did that growth come from? So if you don't take a picture, you think that nothing's happening. But when you look at previous pictures or timestamps of that plant's life, then you're like, oh, a lot has happened. A lot has happened. So it's a very strong aloe based on the feel of it. Like that is not squeezing at all in terms of the leaf. They're standing firm, which is a good sign of aloes. So they're very green. So I have basically 4 grace plants. 2 are bigger, 2 are smaller, but they're all called Grace. I call all of them Grace. These are like the Grace babies. I call these Grace babies. I am now going to do my alocasias, and I think these are probably, I mean, I love all of my plants. All of my plants have profound significance to me, but I really think that these ones are probably my biggest success story because of how they started. So if I think of like my snake plants, I bought my snake plants as snake plants. Like they were already in a somewhat mature state. It was just a case of them generating new leaves. But they already had a presence when they came home with me. The aloe veras I showed you, they started as aloes. They've just multiplied. My ZZ plant, I bought Lennox as a plant so that you could see it as soon as it's in the space. But again, grew some leaves, grew some stems since being with me. Even Nanu came from cuttings, leaf cuttings. So even though she's multiplied and she's become her own plant because she started off with cuttings that I propagated, you could see what she was going to be. My alocasias, they started off as corms from their mum, Anya, who lives in the living room. That's a shared plant between me and my sister. And so when we repotted her for the first time, there were like these 18 or so corms that fell out of her soil, out of her potting mix, and then we decided to propagate all of them, and 4 of them ended up with me, 2 in each pot, and they became the alocasias I have now, which I'm going to bring forward, but you can see them, they've been here. Now they started off as like, if you imagine like the size of an M&M, that's how they started off, as a corm. Say the corm was the size of an M&M or the size of a Malteser. That was the size of the corm. No word of a lie, I have pictures of this. And so what they are now is phenomenal. And I will tell you what they each represent. Here we have is CC. So literally, capital C, capital C. CC is short for... So CC is short for Commie and Connie. So I call her CC mainly, but I named her Commie and Connie. Commie is short for communication and Connie is short for connection. So there's 2 alocasias corms that were planted in a little cup, a little plastic cup, to help with the propagation. And then as it developed more and more, it then went into a smaller pot. And I think I have pictures of these stages before it went into this bigger pot because she needed room to really grow for the growing season, etc. The reason why I called her Commie and Connie, or CC for short, is because I really wanted to remind myself how important communication is in relationships. So I would say that she represents relationships of all sorts. So how you show up in your relationship with yourself, your relationship with family, with friends, or with a romantic partner, or colleagues, or however, but mainly those intimate relationships. And I feel like the foundation of any relationship is good communication and a healthy connection. And so that's what she reminds me of whenever I look at her, whenever I call her name. I think of, am I communicating well? Is the person I'm in a relationship with communicating well with me? Do we have a good connection? Are we compatible? Are we showing up honestly? Are we being genuine? Are we saying what we really want to say? Are we expressing ourselves? And as you can see, she's very expressive because she branches out. So I say, to a large extent, Cece is definitely my side of the communication. But yeah, it reminds me, it's almost like having tangible ways of thinking about, feeling and practicing, you know, those exchanges. So that's what Cece represents. That's why I called her what I called her, a reminder that communication and connection are super important when you're engaging with other human beings. So if I see that she's got new leaves coming through, I obviously she's growing, she's developing, but I attach some sort of meaning to that. What does this mean in the space of communication? What does this mean in the landscape of the connections that I have, the existing connections that I have? But if I see any blemishes, any speckles, obviously I try and rotate her because she loves to lean towards the light and stuff. So I try and make sure that all of her leaves get a good amount of light, etc. Then it's a case of, okay, what direction are you swaying in? Why are you getting pulled in that direction? What does this mean? All of that good stuff. So how I communicate with myself, how I communicate with others, but particularly those intimate connections that I have. So that's Miss Cece. Now her sister, Penelope, I'm going to grab. This is Penelope, and Penelope's naming process was a little unique compared to all my other plants. With Penelope, this is better. When I first had her, Penelope's got a bit of a story, and she's really thrived and kind of showed off a little bit. She's kind of proven herself a lot to me, even though I don't feel like she really needs to, but she's definitely been like, okay mom, what are you gonna do now? Look how amazing I am. And she deserves to stand in that. In short, Penelope represents beauty and perfection. So beauty in perfection. Even though you're not perfect, you're still stunning, right? And the reason for that is because when I first potted Penelope and Cece, or when I was first propagating them, Cece was thriving. She was pushing through. I've always been a confident communicator, a very strong communicator. I've just had to learn how to gain confidence in communicating on personal things. But overall, communicating has never been an issue for me. And I don't usually experience social awkwardness. So communicating hasn't really been a problem for me to be honest, say what I'm thinking. But it's just a case of how I feel personally. That has been a continuous journey, hence why I know that even as a confident communicator, there are still areas that I'm developing or improving upon, and exploring and taking risks and stepping outside my comfort zone and doing what's healthy, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. That's why I have Cece. So it's almost like even the areas in which you're usually good at or tend to be good at, there's always room for improvement. Cece, right? Penelope, however, when I was first propagating the two sisters, so Cece and Penelope had like a blemish on one of her initial leaves. That leaf isn't around anymore because if you know alocasia, or if you don't know, alocasias lose their leaves. So usually as they gain one, they lose one, usually. So it weakens. So the oldest one begins to weaken over time, and it almost allows for nutrients and everything to go to the newer ones, the stronger ones, the bigger ones, all that kind of stuff. So so she had a blemish on one of her leaves, and she also experienced some activity, let's say, in the soil when she was in a smaller pot. And it was actually my sister who says, Liv, don't just leave her, she's fine, they're not going anywhere. Research them. I researched them and it turned out that the things that I was seeing moving in the soil actually helped the soil and was actually helping her, because she was still green and everything. It was just, and they weren't getting anywhere else, they were just in the pot. So just doing some research, but I was a bit impulsive and I was ready to chuck her out kind of thing when she was much smaller than this. So we've already had a discussion, so she's good with me now, and I'm good with her. But yeah, so she had a blemish on one of her initial leaves, and so she wasn't looking as polished as Cece was, let's say. And I don't know if anyone knows the film, but there is actually a film called Penelope where she's got like this pig nose or snout, and it's all about like some curse that was put on her. So from the exterior, from the outside, she didn't look like your average teenage girl or adolescent girl, and because she had this pig nose, as it were, but then by the end of the movie, the nose goes and she looks like a normal human being again. So that's why I named her Penelope. It's almost like, you could have a blemish, you can have an imperfection, but that doesn't detract from what you have within, what you have inside of you. So Penelope's name came from that. But I guess because Penelope starts with P and perfection starts with P and purpose starts with P, then it kind of folds it all into that, in terms of even though she's not perfect, she has a purpose, and therefore she has a place with me, in my room, in my living environment, and all that good stuff. So she definitely signifies beauty or perfection as you are. So that's Miss Penelope. She's the sister to Cece, and as you can see, she's much fuller than Cece. I think she's got more leaves. Cece currently has 7 leaves, and it's not about quantity either. Let's just say that. Penelope has about 10, but she has definitely kind of taken over her sister in terms of abundance, but they still are very much happy sisters. So that's all my plants in my room. If you want to see more about my plants, then let me know in the comments, or like and subscribe, and I will put up some more content about my plants whenever I am able to. But that's it for now, so bear with me, please. So you've seen Switchy, Trey, Jay, Baby Trey, Lennox, Baby Lennox, Grace babies, Cece and Penelope. I also have Nintai in my living room as well, which is a cast iron plant, more casual colloquial name. Yana is a story on her own. She is a corn plant, or a Dracaena. She started off as almost like a tree, and now she's in a much smaller space. Now she's in water and clay pebbles, so leca, I think it's called. And then I have all the shared ones. I have plants upon plants.